It's the regular MNC meeting of the Third Laguna Hills Mutual. Today is Monday, January 7th, 2019. It's 1 p.m. I'd- Is the media in here? I'd like to
No,
acknowledge media.
Did you establish a quorum? You have to
Do
say
we-
that out.
Okay, we established quorum. Do we have the
One,
right
2,
number?
3, 4.
Yes, we do.
Okay. The media,
Media, is the media here? I can't see them. Do you?
no.
Okay, so we don't have any media representation today. All right. I call to approve the agenda.
No, the meeting report. Oh, agenda, you're right.
Agenda, ma'am.
I move.
Do I hear a second? John seconds. All in favor?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Actually, the agenda, we would like to add a report to the agenda. Your item 14 right now, street light pilot program update. I wanted to do an oral discussion, but I changed my mind. I'm going to give you a report on that, and I would like that to be number 14. So instead of an oral discussion, you're going to get a report on item 14, so,
So noted.
yes.
Okay.
So, go ahead, ma'am.
As the person who made the motion,
Mm-hmm.
I have the first opportunity to change the agenda. Ernesto.
So be it.
So, so I would like to remove off of the consent calendar, number 9, the maintenance expenditure and variances report, just because there are a few items for discussion or questions.
Okay.
So we'd like to move number 9 to, what do we want to move it to?
You can leave it in place. We can discuss it in place.
Well, we can't, we can leave it in place, but we can't be on consent calendar, so it has to move off of place. Otherwise, we're just going to consent 8 and 10.
I would just pull the items that you want to discuss. Move
right.
Move the rest of the agenda and just discuss them
So
as the
we'll
same
pull
number.
it right after we do the consent calendar.
Yes, and I will also like to pull item number 11, the project log for discussion.
The
It's number
project
10.
log is 10.
Number 10.
I apologize, number 10, yes.
So all we're going to then consent, if unless somebody moves it, is the programs report.
That is correct. So you may want to take a vote on moving the rest of the consent calendar.
Okay,
So
so what you have to do.
Do we
now-
approve the agenda
As amended.
As amended?
I move.
Any second? Okay. All in favor? Favor? Okay. All done. So we have the agenda approved. Next, we need to approve the meeting minutes of the last November 5th, 2018 meeting. So moved. Any
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, then do we approve the meeting minutes as
Consensus.
consent?
Well, you don't have to vote if nobody
Okay.
says anything,
All right.
so it's by consensus.
All right. Okay, so we now on item 5, which is the chair's remarks.
That's you.
Hmm?
That's you.
That's me. Fortunately or unfortunately. Seems like we've been moving right along. Ernesto is back from his vacation, all energized to lead us through the next year with all the projects that we have consented. And we are hoping that we don't add any new projects, but there may be possibility to add 1 or 2 sneaky ones that would sneak in. We're going to talk about many things today, so be here. Thank you. That's all I have to say today. Moving on to the next item, do we have any members who would like to make a comment?
You have had to give your name.
Yes, we have
Okay.
Ed McGill.
So we're
Ed
going to talk.
Miguel.
We're going to
Oh, I'm
talk
sorry.
about things that are not on our calendar or on our agenda.
They're fighting to come up, my goodness.
Ed McGill, 23902C. I'm the building captain at 2C, at 2390. And we've been trying, I guess, for the past 2 to 3 years to get a new washer in the first floor. I checked with Whirlpool Corporation, we tracked the machine of being 14 years and 7 months old. And it's been serviced 7 times this year. We're without that washer a lot. Doesn't make the ladies down there too happy. But I was very happy to see this morning, when I came out, they were taking the table and the items out of there. Of course, it was to fit the washer in, but no, it wasn't. They're painting the walls in the washer room.
Getting ready for the new washer. No, you didn't believe us. Okay.
So it was a nice try. The ladies were happy for 20 minutes. But I would appreciate if we could take a look at that and find out with the, I have a board in there which the ladies fill out every time something goes wrong with the machine. And it seems that it is the final rinse. It gets in there, spins, shuts down, and there is, as the repairman finds out when he opens the door, water coming out. We get a lot of water in there. That's been it 4 times this year. So if we could take a hard look at that. I would
By
appreciate it.
January 7th, they've already been here 4 times?
No, well, less.
2018.
So, Mr. Chair,
Let's not tackle that.
Mr. Chair,
I know it.
we will have a look at it.
Of course.
Yeah, and
Yes.
So it's 2390?
2390 on the first floor. Thank you.
We definitely will take a look at it, and we want to keep you and your residents happy.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Stuart Hack, 2393 3D, President of the Garden Villa Association. I have 2 items that I'd like to bring to your attention. The first is regarding the Shepherd's Crook replacement of the barbed wire. What I've been trying to ascertain is whether all of the barbed wire along Ridge Route is going to be...
That's on the agenda.
I can discuss it now, or I can discuss it later. It's
Generally, we just take the questions and discuss
Okay.
it later.
very good.
Okay.
Generally.
So specifically, all along Ridge Route, every bit of it. And then the second thing I'd like to talk to you about is the broken mailbox doors. And I took some pictures, which I'm happy to share with you.
Is this something new, Stuart, that we don't know about, or is it
Apparently,
something that security already knows about?
It's been reported by Building 2397, building captain, several times is what that lady told me. And I went over there this morning and just to see what was going on. I took pictures of it. It's very similar to what I experienced in my
Your
building.
building, right.
And that is, several of these doors have been jimmied open, and they have requested repairs, and they've not been done. I can put my fingers in and grab their nail out, just as I had experienced in my building. So there's no protection whatsoever for their mail. So first, I'm requesting that they be repaired. And secondly, I'm requesting that all of the mailboxes in all of the Garden Villa Association buildings be replaced with the heavy-duty mailboxes that I now have in my building, 2393. And the reason is, don't we owe this to people who live in Garden Villa buildings, that their mail is protected? How long should this go on? Aren't they entitled to this? We're on notice. These people I had mail taken right out of my mailbox, and I know what was taken out because I also get pictures, photos from the post office department of everything that goes in my mailbox. They're taking out things that can identify me. I wish they were taking out checks, but nobody's sending me checks.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So isn't it time?
Yes.
Yeah,
We have taken,
no. So, Chairman, I did, you and I had correspondence on this, which I
Yes.
really appreciate. And I
Yes.
understand that the game plan is that cameras are going to be put in to the mailrooms, and that's going to stop it. And I just cannot picture, so to speak, I cannot picture those cameras stopping anything. Our law enforcement people in the village do not carry guns. They do not have the authority to arrest anybody. Even if they caught somebody red-handed, they couldn't do anything about it. Even if they call the sheriff's department, it'll be who knows how long, because this is not life or death stuff before the sheriff gets out. And these people are long gone. I had a person from security in a truck in my downstairs, the basement, the car, where the cars are parked. And I was coming out of my mail room, and I said hello to him, and I asked him why he was there. And he said he's there to check on the mailboxes. And now, I did not get into a discussion with him, but what was he going to do? First, he had to get out of his truck, go into my mailroom, open the door, and see if anything had happened on mailboxes. And let's suppose something had happened. Now what? So I think we need to stop people from having easy access to our mailboxes. I understand that the heavy-duty mailboxes may not be foolproof, but they sure as heck would stop people from hit and run. They sure, I mean, mine, they've already tried to jimmy mine. I've seen the marks on the box, and they didn't get into it. So that's what I'm asking, that it go into the budget, please.
it's noted, go ahead.
Stuart, when we had the break-ins and we replaced the one in your mailroom.
Yeah.
And as far as we knew, I mean, from the board's perspective, that then the break-ins basically were under, when I say under control, we weren't getting other reports. And so therefore, I don't know how much each mailbox was, but you do. How much?
We spent $2,945.
Okay, so the basic thing is that as with anything that we do within Third, it would not be the LH21s because they had their other mailbox
Right.
ordeal. And we certainly knew that we weren't going to ask the people to pay for their own mailboxes, as previous boards has done, because we know it was our responsibility. But I knew that we knew that we would have to address it if the problem continued. So as the problem continues, it'd be something that I don't know, and when you say, do we owe it to the residents? Well, we sort of really owe everything to the residents, but we also always try to watch what we spend. We might decide, and this will be up to the team, with Ernesto's team, to say, because in your gate, in that area, there are more challenges than there are, for example, at 14. We had gate 14, we haven't had any break-ins. So maybe we have to go in and replace, I'm going to say half, just as a number, 30%, 70% of the mailboxes. But I don't necessarily know if we have to say, let's replace them all at this moment in
I'm
time.
open.
But
Yeah.
but we have to, we do, not only do we owe it to the Garden Villa residents, some of the other mailboxes are ridiculous. The people have no place to put their outgoing mail, and mailboxes is an issue for all of Third. So we, from my perspective, we thank you for bringing it up, and that has to be something that we will, at least we know of a good mailbox, so we don't have to start checking. And we will definitely determine where we should put them next and put them. Ernesto, do you?
No, I think that it needs to really be given some thought, because in staff's opinion, this is not a problem with the mailboxes. It's a crime. It's something that needs to be dealt with. It's the crime that's occurring. And you can upgrade the mailboxes to something more substantial. Bottom line, you can still break into those mailboxes. I mean, they are a little bit more substantial, but we're looking at $2,900 per mailbox. If you were to replace all 52
Yeah, but we might
buildings.
not do 52. You might say, I mean, the thing
Right,
is
yeah.
if it's flimsy, we have to not be having it flimsy.
Right, it's a typical mailbox. It's made out of aluminum, and, you know, can you upgrade it to something more substantial? Yes, you can, such as we did in Stewart's building. There's the type that we have outside of the buildings that, you know, are much more substantial because they're made for the weather, the standalone ones and the pedestals. So you can't do that upgrade, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with an issue of crime, and you should address the crime that's occurring. If you do decide to upgrade some of the mailboxes, I would suggest that you do it randomly and maybe do, you know, a small number of them randomly to just, I mean, it's entirely up to the board, but
I
it's a
have a
cost.
suggestion.
Yeah, it's an
In
associated
our
cost.
project log, we have an item called Garden Villa Mailroom Renovation.
That's for the walls and floor.
No, it also says mailboxes.
Yeah, it did.
Installation
yeah,
of
yeah.
new mailbox. Hang
Yeah.
on.
Right.
Just hear me out.
Sure.
It may be that we are replacing like for like what we have with
That's what you're doing, yeah.
That's what we do.
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Instead of just doing that, we could use some extra dollars in this budget and replace it with a little stronger box that you have in your building. And then we can add another side project to update the other mailboxes which are not being done in this project, because this project is only for 10 buildings a year.
Yeah.
So assume 10 buildings of the year got done in this, and we can do some more which are a problem, where in which areas we have problems which are identified. So that way we'll have a bunch more done, and let's look at it in a way that we can expedite this mailbox dilemma that we are facing.
Okay.
Would
Yeah.
that, yes, sir.
I know that garden villas are important, and I know we have a garden villa association, but I'm getting sick and tired of folks making decisions about garden villas and forgetting about the two-stories. We have even worse mailboxes than what you're looking at here. And in fact, we have the shelf where you're supposed to put your outgoing mail and let everybody get into it. I'm fortunate because I can get in a car and I can drive down to the post office and throw it into a mailbox down there. But some of my residents don't drive. Some of my residents depend on a little clip that they put in that area, and then it sits out there all day long, and they are writing checks. So this is not just an issue for the garden villas, and I'm all for helping them out, but I also, as in so many other instances, we forget that two stories are just as vulnerable and in just as crazy shape when it comes to these mailboxes. I've never seen anything like these mailboxes before. I've always had the stronger ones that you're talking about, Ernesto, and in my former living areas. So if we're going to start a program working over time, because I know we can't do this all at once, but over time, also include those places of which we have many. I mean, the whole wedding cake area is two stories. And in my area, it's two stories. So if you would consider that.
I concur with you, Roy. I stay in a two-story building, and I use the clip to send out my mail too. The big picture that I see is not the mail getting lost or somebody breaking in. Like Ernesto pointed out, it's a criminal thing. So I guess we will also have to bring this to Chief Moy's attention, that they be more vigilant, and we have besides us looking into the mailboxes, that they have a initiative on looking out for these perpetrators and do something about it. I mean, they'll have to get help from the sheriffs or whichever. So that may be another angle to it. But so far, I haven't noticed any negative activity in my area where I live. Maybe you should move over.
I'm trying.
Okay, Rosemary.
A few things. The reason why you hear so much about the three-story buildings is because they haven't been taken care of for 35 years. And all we ever did was take care of the two-story and the houses. So that's probably why you hear it a little bit more. And it's the first time we ever had a board that had 4 Garden Villa building, members, because we never did. I would be the only hangout. So we're not paying too much attention. It would take us 10 years to catch up on all the work that wasn't done. The biggest thing is mailboxes are on, aren't they? I never got a copy of my budget. I'm going to get my book. Isn't that a budgeted item on reserves?
Right, it's a budget item, and as Kush said, there's 10 scheduled to be done this year.
No, I'm not talking about the mailrooms. I'm talking about,
It's
because
line item 14.
on,
Mailboxes, $19,000, but.
no, no. all
Right, that's for standalones,
No, but it's
mailboxes,
for
they're not
mail,
Garden
no,
Villa,
but it's for mailboxes in general. So, because we've been talking about mailboxes in general, as well as for the three-story buildings. When Judith Troutman could give us 2-hour dissertation on mailboxes in her building, how bad they are. So I think that as much as we don't want to, hate to say we're going to give you extra projects, I think that mailboxes in the 3 stories, but overall, are not what they should be for the community, and we have to figure out a way to address it. And I don't know how you want to address it. I don't know, I hate to say this, I don't know if you want to have a mailbox subcommittee. I mean, I hate to say it, no, but I mean, we have to address it, because in the 2 stories, in the ones where we're telling people to put their mail in an open box is terrible.
Terrible.
I mean, but it's not tacky, it's totally unsafe. So, and that's what we're offering our residents. We have situations where they can't get their medication at all because there's no place to put it. So I do believe that that's something that we have to address. So there is the security part, but the thing is there's also a fact that we're not even giving them something that's workable. Because if their medication has to sit outside on a shelf, and that's part of it too. So I do think it's something that, the big thing with that is people didn't know where to start.
Right, so if I may suggest, my recommendation would be that we address the mailboxes through the mailbox program that we have right now. We have the mailroom renovations, which replaces mailboxes. So if it is this committee's desire, we can go ahead and upgrade those to a heavier duty mailbox, such as the one we installed at Stewart's building. So we can start with that. Starting a brand-new program, my recommendation would be that you look at it and that we put it in front of you during the budget process so you can consider it for next year funding. But no, not to add it this year.
But the thing is that we have the mailroom renovation program, but we also have money in a mailbox reserves program. No? Yes?
No, those-
Yes, we do. Wait, Ming, please, because I didn't get my book. Somebody took my book.
Yeah, those are for, they're,
Mailbox is reserve expenditure from 2015. 2015 was 11,000, 16 was 2,000, 17 was 13,000, 18 was 19,000. But you raise it to 2019 to 36,000.
So next year, we
So-
have $36,000. So we did put $36,000 in that
right.
fund.
If I may read your component sheet from the budget on this. This is, Third Mutual has approximately 4,271 individual mailboxes.
Right.
Per board directive in 2012, maintenance and construction meeting, the replacement of pedestal and/or cluster-type mailboxes were moved from operating to reserve. Each cluster mailbox will house up to 8 units. So this is assigned for cluster mailboxes, which are outside of buildings.
Is that what we allocated the $36,000 to?
That is correct. So my suggestion again is that you do have a program to address the mail rooms. Let's begin by upgrading those mailboxes through that program. I can bring back what the supplemental appropriation will be for that. So we can add it to that program and begin the process there. If there's a desire to upgrade mailboxes throughout the community, we can come back to you during the budget process with the costs associated with that, and you can consider it with the rest of your priorities next year.
Okay, so, but the thing is, yes, we should be developing a mailbox program for the community, without a doubt. But if we go ahead and we upgrade the mailboxes when we do the mailroom renovation, that might be in buildings that are, there are some areas that are safe, have less problems than others. I don't want to have us be doing 10 new, heavier, $2,000 per mailbox in those and neglect the ones that are in areas where we have problems. So maybe we just have to upgrade those and add some more money for the other ones. Is that what we'll do?
We could, or we could ask Chief Moy if he has target areas that he would like us to consider.
And that could work, that would
Yeah.
work.
And then,
That could,
yeah, then you can decide whether you want to redirect the mailroom renovations to those areas.
so could we then ask you, being that we meet every other month, to come back to us in March with a plan to, I'm not saying for the whole community, that's for the budget, but for a plan for the targeted areas and for the renovations and see what we have to do?
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Because that's not like doing the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
community, so that would work. That
Yeah,
would
we can
work.
certainly do that.
Because we all know that, although you said security's in the car by the time they get out and all this, we know that there's so much going on in the community that security can't be everywhere. And then the next thing he'll say, well, if you want that, you have to add 52 security guards. And
Yeah,
then you
well,
say, well,
yeah.
let's get the 100 mailbox, whatever. So, okay, that's a
No,
great
no,
point.
we can fix this. This is not a big, major
Well,
brain surgery. It's a
so-
matter of coordination.
So we'll just put that on our list for next
Yeah.
meeting?
Could I ask you specifically for 2397?
Well, I'm sure Ernesto already has that building on his list.
Yeah, this should not continue in that, I mean, this is obvious,
Okay,
cannot continue. Yeah. Thank you all so very much.
you're welcome.
You're welcome. All right, so moving on.
Excuse me, good.
Are there any other
Yes.
members who have a comment? Oh, okay, good.
Yes, Lynn.
Could I address,
Stuart?
no, the other,
Ed,
Ed's comment in question? When he talked about the
Washer?
washrooms, today is the first day through the 23rd that they have the cleaning project for all the laundry rooms. So that started today, and it might have started in his building on the first floor.
right. But he was all excited, thinking it was otherwise.
Okay.
I talked to the individual, he's painting all 3 laundry rooms.
Okay.
If I may, this has to do with our dryer replacement, and I will
Yes.
talk about that.
That
Later.
I will talk about that during my
We probably talked
department head
about
update.
it, but they don't know about it.
Right, so I'll talk about that in department head update next. So,
But before rather than, could I just throw one thing out?
Of course.
So now that we have carried on, for the people who live in the 3-story buildings, I think that we should thank you for those trash room doors. I almost fainted.
Yes, yes.
I couldn't believe it. I didn't know we were getting new doors.
We were going to get to that in our update.
We are?
Yeah,
Well, I wanted to thank him.
good job.
They
Thank-
were fabulous. They're just, you have to turn the little handle.
He hasn't given us.
I know, it's like, so good job.
So your money counts. Steve, you had a comment.
Regarding the washer repair, my understanding is that the washers are on a 10-year replacement cycle. So if that's not being met, that should be looked at. Number two, several years ago, while Mark Stahl was still here,
That was only last year.
no, he was here since the VMS changeover. 3 years. There was extensive discussions regarding the appliance repair budget. And I personally did some work in looking at that. And I was surprised to find that in some cases, repairs were being done on equipment that was 7, 8 years old. And a washer at the time was about $1,700. And a repair bill would come up for $1,200 on a washing machine. And then the next year, there'd be a $600 repair on the washing machine.
That's a bit backwards.
And what we were supposed to have done, and I don't know what happened, but there was supposed to be a methodology to determine whether or not a machine would be repaired or replaced based on its age, the number of times that it had service, and what the current cost of a repair would be. If you blow the transmission in the gearbox for the washing machine and it turns into a $1,200 repair and the machine is more than 5 years old or 4 years old, you may as well just replace the machine. And this is something that we went through years ago and had very serious conversations with. So when Ed says that he's had a machine in here that's been repaired 4 times in the last year, something's being missed.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Steve is correct. We did look at the cost of repairing versus replacing. And we arrived at the fact that the method that we were using was more financially, financially advantageous to the mutual to continue to do the way we were doing. Your budget, the component sheet for replacement of machines actually does not call for a 10-year replacement. It's a 15-year replacement that's called in the budget. However, our policy has been to continue to work with machines as long as they're not completely broken. And we did do that analysis as to whether it was cheaper to continue to repair them with in-house staff as opposed to replacing them. And the analysis found that it was the way it was being done was the way to do it financially.
Okay.
So,
When
but we
do we-
will take a look at the machine. We'll pull the history on it and see if there's excessive repairs. I'm not saying that this process is perfect. There may be machines that are being serviced way too long, and it's costing us for those machines, so we will take a look at it and.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can we also review that policy again about the repair versus replacement policy?
Yeah, I'll look for the information that was calculated for that.
Okay, thank you. So we are at
Number 7.
number 7. We are at the department head update. Ernesto, it's not now your time to give us the whirlwind information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. It seems like we're down the road on this year, but I want to wish everybody a happy new year.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be back. One of the first items that I want to touch on is the commercial dryer and laundry pedestal replacements. We, as you know, the board awarded a contract to replace 373 coin-operated commercial dryers with the respective 10-inch pedestals, and that's moving forward. This is a pretty, it requires a lot of extensive coordination to get this thing done. The first item that I want to talk about is the critical path on the schedule for this. Originally, the vendor told us that they were going to be starting in March. We sat down with the vendor and we negotiated a faster schedule. So we're going to be starting in February. Could you put that up, please? So I created a couple of slides for you. They're in front of you. One of them, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to start deploying the machines beginning February 11th. We're going to be doing it in 2 phases. because, again, the procurement of the machines, that's the driving factor on the schedule. The vendor will not have all of the machines in February. He's going to get another batch in March. But we're going to start February 11th, and we're going to go through the 18th. And with that phase, we're going to be replacing 74 facilities and 178 laundry dryer pedestals. Then after that's completed, we're going to move into phase 2, which will be doing the remaining of the Garden Villas and LH21 laundries. And that's going to start March 4th. And we're going to take that through March 8th. And we're going to complete 51 facilities and 192 laundry dryers and pedestals. There's quite a bit of logistics with this program. You've heard today from Stuart that and Ed, that they are cleaning some of these laundry facilities. We did two things. We wanted to make sure that when the dryers were replaced, you ended up with a facility that looked pretty clean, fairly new. So what we're doing two things. One is we are retaining the services of a custodial company to come in and do a thorough cleaning of each one of the facilities. And then after the machines get put in place, we're going to have our touch-up crews follow through to make sure that the facilities are completely touched up, painted. So you end up with a facility that looks new with your new machine. As far as the logistics of deploying the machines, it requires that the machines first be ordered by the vendor, and then they be delivered to their shop. Once they have them there, they have to install the electrical cables, which typically don't come with machines. As you know, if you ever bought a machine, you have to put the cables come in separate. So they'll be installing that. They'll also be installing the coin-operated boxes, and that also gets done in their shop. So once they get all that done, they'll load them in a truck, and they'll start the delivery. A separate outfit, which it's under contract with the vendor, will take the old machines away. So we want to make sure that this is as smooth as possible for the residents. We want to make sure that they're not without a machine past a day. So there's a lot of coordination that takes place to be able to get this accomplished. So the schedule that you see here, it was not put together half-heartedly. It was given a lot of thought, and this is the best schedule that we can provide you at this time.
While you're at that, I have one question. When they come and replace the dryers, they will also bring the necessary pedestals for the washer. I know the standalone buildings don't get a pedestal for the washer, but when they do the 3-story buildings, they will come with the necessary pedestal for the washer. So the same day, they will have new pedestals at the correct height and the dryers with the pedestals at the correct height. It will all look.
That's the desired outcome of this process, to have them do that concurrently.
Yes.
So that's what we're asking the vendor to
Will
do.
it happen?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we're asking the vendor to do.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
I have 3 questions, not one.
Of course. Yes,
Where,
next.
what budget do we have for the cleaning, painting, and everything else? Where is that money coming from?
I believe that the cleaning, the painting, the touch-up, we're going to do with our touch-up crews in-house. The cleaning, the custodial, we're taking that out of miscellaneous, our miscellaneous budget. Our
What
miscellaneous account.
miscellaneous?
We have 200, I'm sorry? Yeah, so we're going to use outside services, and
Okay,
it's a
so it's
miscellaneous
not gonna,
budget.
it's not gonna wind up in janitorial?
No, it will not.
And because look at Moy Ming's laughing, because you know me and janitorial. So it's going to technically go to a reserve component of outside services because it is attached to a reserve expenditure.
That's correct.
So we won't see it on operating. Okay, so that was question number 1. Number 2 is, are we getting anything for the old machines?
No, we're not. No, we're asking them to remove them. We don't want to see them again.
Okay.
It'll cost us
right.
more to
Okay,
actually try
and the
to
other-
salvage them.
My last part is this is going to need some very fine-tuned communication to the residents. Nothing, I'm trying to laugh, get your quarters ready. No, I'm kidding, Ed, I'm not gonna do that. But we have to, so, has that gone, have we asked for Eileen's assistance on this? So that, and we, we say, well, we're gonna notify people, for the facilities. You know how I'm totally against mailing letters to the three-story buildings, so that's one thing. But for the facilities, are we just gonna put a sign in the laundry room? What is our communication plan? Because this needs a
Sure.
communication plan.
Of course, we will work with Eileen, obviously. Right now, what we're thinking is posting it in the mail rooms as well as in the laundry facilities, also communicating with the building captains so that they can disseminate the information, and maybe do a couple of blasts on it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so the biggest, so in the facilities, we would just post it.
That's
Is
correct.
there a bulletin board in the facilities?
There is.
Not in the laundry rooms, I'm talking about the freestanding. In the freestanding, is there?
Yes,
There
there is.
Okay, I've only been in
Yeah.
them once or twice. So, so we'll communicate, because otherwise, who uses those? You don't know,
Right,
right?
right.
So you'll be posting it on the bulletin boards, and in the three-story buildings, you'll be using the bulletin boards and the building captains.
The building captains.
So the
that's correct.
biggest thing is, and I know this is hard from your perspective, is how much advance notice are you going to give the people? Because I know you don't want it too far in advance, but are you going to give like 2 weeks' notice?
We're thinking about 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, because longer than that, you could have problems with
Right.
delivery. And that's what people, they said they were coming and they didn't come.
Right.
But 1 week sometimes so you're going to go for a 2-week?
2 week
Some-
notice, and we're also having a meeting with the vendor again. We already met a couple times. We're going to meet with them again to confirm all of the days, to make sure that the equipment has arrived, and to coordinate with the custodial as well as our touch-up paint crews to make sure it all goes smoothly. They need to also look to see where they're going to stage their trucks, because they're going to bring in a truck full of machines, so they're going to have to take some of the parking. So all of this needs to be orchestrated.
And wouldn't they have to use elevator pads?
Yes, they'll be
And
required.
we don't have that many pairs. They're going to have to be running around with a pair of elevator pads under their arm.
No, they're required to bring their own elevator.
They're gonna
pads.
bring their own?
Yes,
Okay, so that's important for us to know also, that.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
We'll make sure, we
Okay.
already told them in no uncertain terms that we're going to take pictures of the elevators before and after. And any damage on the elevators, they'll be required to offset the costs to repair
So,
it.
and couldn't they damage the floors too?
All of it, yeah.
All of it, okay.
Right.
All right. I know it's a big project.
Right.
Kush, can I ask one question?
John
before
was
you.
next.
Okay.
You next.
I'm done.
Rosemary covered my point, but this needs
Oh.
promulgation along with a color code.
I'm sorry, say that again?
This needs promulgation along with a color code. Because we can't figure out who's on first on this thing. What do these colors mean? You usually have a color.
Oh, the colors on the map, don't ignore them. They don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. They're just the different points, and, but they don't necessarily, the color doesn't mean anything.
He's just trying to tell you.
No, and I
touch the
agree with
points,
you,
know?
John. I was wondering what color I was, so thank you.
My question the same was this. Well, yeah, but doesn't mean is why you color them.
Just to have fun.
There was a reason why they were colored initially, but it was not for the purpose of this presentation. For the purpose of this presentation, ignore the colors. Just look at the dots.
Just having fun with you. All right, next, you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
My question is, what has been put forward for the protocol of the coin boxes as far as keying?
We're working with security to make sure that they get the keys that they're looking for. One of the ideas of moving forward with rekeying these boxes is to end up with a much less number of keys instead of a pile of keys, to have keys that are easily handled. And security is leading that charge. They will be in part of our conversations and how they get rekeyed.
Yeah, it should follow
Well-
the same program that we have now for the dryers.
My question is specific to the point of if you're ordering the dryers and you're ordering the boxes, then the boxes should be ordered in the quantity to the key.
Correct.
We rekeyed all the washing machines, and we got it down to a small amount of keys. I don't want to discuss the exact number of keys to give away how we're using it now, but as they're going to be route-based, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to bring in 400 or whatever the quantity is of
At
these
least
dryers,
300.
and then have to go back and go, oh, at $30 a box, we're going to be rekeying them.
Yeah, no, that's a
Okay.
very good point, and we'll certainly make Tim aware of that. We're deferring to them since they're the ones who are going to maintain the boxes and operate them and empty them and all of that, so.
Yeah, because if the boxes are going to come from the manufacturer of the boxes rather than from the manufacturer of the washing machines, that'll have to be coordinated with that factory so that they can provide the number of locks per designation that you want. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next item that I wanted to speak on was the Shepherd's Crooks. There've been some questions from the audience as to whether we're going to do all of Ridge Route, and that is a plan. I wanted to put in front of you what the locations that will be completed. By the way, all this entire project should be completed by the end of this month. There were some delays on some of the areas that had to be fabricated, especially because there were little changes in the course of the wall. So those areas have been already fabricated, and we'll end up with that entire area installed. So, and I also wanted to talk about what's the next coming year, what we're proposing to do with Shepherd's Crook installation. As you know, we prepare a map to get the Shepherd's Crooks installed throughout the community as regarded by the city. And we were going to be doing that on an annual basis to make sure that the cost is not too much. So for next year, the board budgeted sufficient funds to address the area here. This happens to be at Gate 11, and it's a continuation of what we have already installed. And it looks like 961 feet on the left side of what was completed, and about 588 feet on the other side. Again, these areas were selected based on security's input. There were areas that security felt were the most, were providing the most vulnerability to the community because of people entering the community from those areas. So this is what you can expect for next year. The next item I wanted to talk about is your roofing program. Okay. Go back.
The note on the project log says that you're going to do them all throughout the entire third, and I think that's crazy. Because the existing barbed wire on the western perimeter works just fine. Sure, we had some problems in Gate 11. And you responded by saying, well, there is this program that is requiring it. And my comment is, we need to have a discussion with the building official, because it doesn't sound to me like we should have to.
Actually, the city is not requiring it. The boards were interested in replacing barbed wire because of its looks and because of its condition. So the city said, no, we will not allow to replace barbed wire with barbed wire any longer. So the boards were desirous of replacing all of the barbed wire, and we split the cost over several years. What we did get through the city was a conditional use permit, which allows us to do that on an annual basis. So at some point, the board may choose to stop the program and not to replace anymore. However, whenever we have to replace barbed wire that's already deteriorated, it will have to be replaced with Shepherd's Crook.
Where would I find the cost, and was that under reserve?
That's in reserves.
It is
That's correct.
in reserves.
Yeah.
Now,
So, Ernesto,
Yes, sir.
the Ridge Route Shepherd's Crook is scheduled to finish at what time?
This month.
Or end of January?
Yeah, January
So all
31st,
those little empty pockets that are,
all of it.
all of it will get
All
done?
of it should be all installed by the 31st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lynn, does that answer all your questions?
Yes.
Okay.
What's it under? I apologize. Is it under fencing or?
Shepherd's Crook was a special project.
no, for next year.
No, the one we are just finishing.
No, but he's asking where is it, are you asking where it's budgeted for next
Yes.
year? What line is it on?
Correct.
I'm looking.
Can I,
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I believe it's wall replacement. I don't have, I apologize, I don't have the 19th budget.
Wei Ming, do you
Confirm.
have it?
Yes.
Could you tell us? We'll make you an advisor.
Waving is totally
Thought I was
indispensable.
looking at something different.
I have a question. Ernesto, when the Shepherd's Crook is done, I think that if you could work with Eileen to just let everybody know that what's done.
That's
Because we
completed.
get constant little nasty grams about, what'd you do, run out of money, or what is this and what is this? So for that
Ernesto, that's-
section that's done, that would be a good thing.
That's not exterior walls, is it?
We'll be happy to work with Eileen on that.
Yeah, just when
Yeah.
that part is, because of how it was done, and we keep trying to explain it, and I keep sending notes to Siobhan to get back to these people.
Would it be line,
It is
20?
exterior walls,
Line 20? Got it.
yeah. And I'm looking to see.
So it's gone from 75,000 to 200,000 for this year.
Right.
That's-
I'd love to have.
Yeah,
all my
and-
income
but that,
around.
you don't have the breakdown, there's subcategories in there.
Not in the-
Shepherd's Crook is 150,000, that,
Budget, but you get the breakdown,
right.
we don't.
Yeah, so $150,000 was allocated towards Shepherd's Crook.
For 2019 or
19.
2020?
Yeah, for 19.
And the other 50,000 is for some other projects
That's
around the third
That's correct,
properties?
yes. The next item I wanted to discuss briefly is the roofing program. We have completed
You guys have so many.
We have completed all of your roofing program, 100%, this year. And I wanted to show you some pictures that we took of one of our roofing projects. Again, this program is dedicated to replacing and maintaining the mutual's roofs. Built-up roofs are inspected on a 15 years after installation. Roofs are determined to have reached the end of their serviceable life and are scheduled to be replaced with a new PVC cool roof system. So that's predominantly what we use now. 51 buildings totaling 177,000 square feet were scheduled to be completed with a $1.4 million budget. We have completed all of the buildings and are now collecting the invoices from the contractor.
So you're
So the-
slightly under budget then?
They're like very, very slight, like
Well,
10%.
It says the building is 1.5, the budget is 1.598.
Right, so we're about 10% below what we anticipated spending. This is we're excited about our new technology. We're using drones, not only to take pictures to update you on the projects, but also to do our inspections. Prior to this, we would have to either get a lift to be scheduled to go to the building and set that up and get up there and do the inspection, or put a ladder up against the roof, and, so it would take a lot of time for us to do that. Now we go out there with our drone, we deploy it in about 10 minutes, and we're off and taking pictures such as the one you see here. So we can ensure quality and we can expedite the inspection work and reduce the cost of our labor.
One moment. Rosemary has a question.
When we installed the solar, we installed a hook system so that for safety. And Do we do that for all of the buildings or just the I think we did them, are we doing them for the garden villas? I know that we didn't have them, so.
Right.
What is,
We did not do it for all the buildings.
Okay.
We did look at the possibility of installing them every time we worked on a roof, but it was very expensive to do so. So what we do is, we essentially put the responsibility on the contractor and make sure that the contractor meets all of the OSHA codes and requirements to make sure that their workers are safe on that roof. So we do not have the hooks.
on the roofing, on the roofs for the wire that was done, because this is actually my building, but,
Right.
there's my patio. And I had sent you an email, because some of the residents were stopping me saying, oh, my roof was just done 8 years ago, and you told me that the roof was done in two parts, or something like that. So all I know is, and then I gave you a copy of the rather dismal letter that Letner does. So I don't know, I didn't know if it's done in two parts, so I think we need a little bit, the board itself needs a little bit better education, and also how we let the residents know.
Sure.
Well,
No,
Letner shouldn't be sending the
no,
residents a
Letner will
note.
not be sending those
But
notifications.
if we're doing a second part of, if our roof program is done in two parts, because that's how it's done, then we have to tell, because otherwise the residents say, you're wasting money. You just did that's what they said.
Right.
And
No,
I know you're not.
No, what we do is we install the roofs and they have a life that they guarantee when you install the roof. What we do is we inspect those roofs mid through that life.
And what is the life?
To see the life, it's 30 years on some of
Okay.
those roofs. So we have a program to inspect them on a 15-year interval to see if there is anything that needs to be corrected. Because it's much cheaper to correct something
Right.
while it's beginning than deal with it at the end of the life of the roof. On the PVC roofs, they're essentially exceeding the years that they're guaranteed for. We're looking at to have these roofs, past, 30 years. But that's typically the cycle. We do install them, and then we inspect them mid the cycle, and then if there's any changes that need to be made, or improvements, or repairs, we get with the contractor makes the repairs, and then we move on.
So in technicality, the information that should have gone to the resident for this building should say, we are going to be installing a new 30-year, because you were putting
That's
the
correct.
30-year roof on, and we will be inspecting it in 15 years, something like that, right?
Right,
Okay.
right.
But like down the street at 4013, they were doing something else to the roof, and I don't know what it was, because they didn't stay there long. And you said they were doing some edging, I don't know what they were doing.
Might be hard for
You know, I-
Professor to give you
I-
that exact.
Well, I
What
don't,
was that?
This part of this section, this one first.
Oh, okay.
This part.
Yeah, Lori's pointing out that they did, I can't point, but
That's all right.
the edge that you see there you go, thank you. The edge that you see there, that was installed separately. So that edge was separate from the PVC cool roof that you see, the white portion of it.
and is that done at a different time?
It was done at a different time, that's correct.
So therefore, they would be going back to a roof to do that?
That is very likely the
See,
case,
I didn't know
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So we have
We learn
another,
something
we-
new every day.
right, so this is half of the roof. This is the workers moving through the roof and replacing all the skylights and everything that needed to be replaced. And we have another one, right? Here's while they're working, as you're very well aware, they had the lifts and they have material that they have to store outside the building. Next. This is work continuing on the roof. And this is the roof completed. Now, the installation of these PVC cool roofs will net the mutual savings in energy costs. They are very reflective, as you can see. So your cooling costs will go down because of this type of roof. And that's part of the benefits that we get from the PVC cool roof.
So the
other-
residents should have less
The
need.
cooling
That is
costs would be
correct.
for
Less,
the residents.
less,
Residents,
less
yes.
air conditioning costs. The other benefit of this PVC roofs is that they're seamless. In other words, it's a membrane that gets laid, and as they lay the member, they overlap it, and then they burn it, and they melt it into itself. So you end up with a seamless membrane on top of your roof. So the possibility of leakage is just very, very, very low. So,
What percentage of our roofs have these?
I'm sorry, say it again?
What percentage of our roofs have these cool roofs? Half?
You know, I don't have that number, but I know that we've installed quite a few of them
But you
since
can
I've been
tell us
here.
when did we start using it, so we know from this point onwards, all the roofs are like that.
Yeah, I don't have that time, but I can get that for you.
Yeah, I think that would be just,
It's like a,
okay.
Okay, I have a question.
just funny.
It's about roofs. We keep overlooking this issue, but in the budgeting, future years, it shows that we have a jump of 1 million to 5 million. We don't address it because it's not right now, and I think that maybe we ought to have staff start looking at that to see how we can avoid a 5 million jump in 4 or 5 years from now.
Right,
on the
right.
roofs.
And we've had that in the past. A lot of this is driven by the warranty on the roofs.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when we do the math and we bring to you a budget for the following year, we adjust those because, as I said, many of these roofs are outlasting their warranties. So the figures in the component sheets for the 30-year layout are predicated on when those warranties come up. But every year, we take a look at them and roll that price back. So you haven't had a $5 million program for roofs, because every year we look at what's realistic. Is it, should we really go with the warranties, or should we look at those roofs that are outlasting their warranties? So we reel it back.
So you're thinking we're not going to be hit with 5 million in 1 year?
I am certain that you're not going to be hit with a $5 million expenditure in 1 year.
But we
being recorded.
did ask, Ernesto, we asked Betty about that. We did. When we've sat down and tried to do the budget, when the board works on it ourselves, and it was like, oh, don't address it, it isn't here yet. And the basic thing is what I hear Bunny asking is that we really should have, and it's Roger's program, him look at the numbers and try to reevaluate the numbers, because if it was 4 million, it was a tremendous jump. Like, we couldn't even imagine what other things you wouldn't be able to do that year. So if that could be looked at, that would be a tremendous thing.
Right. And we does, Eric Schniglu is the one who addresses our roofs. And he does that analysis every single year as we go through. We look at the budget, and you can possibly level it down, the 30 years. But again, reality is you have to base that layout of funding on something. We use the warranties on the roofs. But the reality is that some of these new roofs are outlasting their warranties. So we could take a look to see if we can level that funding a little bit better.
So could we ask to have that, because when do we start the budgets, like May? Can we have a roof analysis, a new roof analysis by our meeting in May, so you would have a very
Certainly,
clean
yeah.
number?
We'll have that for you.
Should you put that on the agenda?
We'll have that for you for the budget process.
Well, slightly before.
And that's all I have for you this morning.
So was that the programs report, Ernesto?
No, this was the
No.
department
No, this
head.
was just my department head update.
Oh, so now you have to do number 8.
I will
No,
talk
no,
about
we have to
a
do the
couple of
consent
items
calendar.
on the project log for you.
No, so then the next thing that we would be doing is voting on the consent calendar programs report.
yes.
Is that correct?
You,
Yes.
yeah, you pull that, so we can discuss that.
The programs, no, we left the programs. We pulled the expenditures and the project log.
That's correct. So
So-
we're gonna discuss those two items, and you can vote on the balance of the consent calendar. Yes.
So I move that we approve the programs report.
So, second.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Okay,
Okay.
I'm trying to help you.
Thank you, thank you. You're doing a great job. We are on,
The expenditures.
yes, the maintenance expenditure and variance explanation.
So I had a few questions. There are a number of, I think that we just have to establish a procedure. There are a number of items that, and I know this is November, and so it's too late to say, oh, what are we going to do about it? But there are a number of items that are like really high. Like, for example, the Garden Villa mailroom has a budget of $23,000 for the year, and according to this, we spent $52,000.
That's item number 10, or?
Wait, I'm trying to.
It's
I'm
on
looking-
this, there's
yeah.
no number on
It's
this.
on the fund expenditures report.
Oh, on the expenditure report.
Well, that's what I wanted
Okay.
to go over, the expenditures. So the basic thing is what happened? I don't ever, I mean, and forgive me, because everything else, well, nothing else so
Right.
far is over.
Yeah.
But that, so why was it so over? And in our reality, we're supposed to discuss if something is going to
Sure.
be 10% over.
Sure.
And this is 143%
So may I
over.
respond to that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were directed to add 10 additional mail rooms, or rather, let's see, if I can go to the item.
So,
One sec.
What was the number of that?
It's in the completed section.
Oh, it's in the completed section, okay.
was this a reserve expenditure or operating?
Balcony, 1 second, please.
It's reserve.
Mailroom is reserved.
It's a reserve
It's
expenditure.
a reserve expenditure.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
so, why is it so so if we're supposed to if we go over that much, Wei Ming, chirp in at any time and stop hiding behind that podium. If we're going so much over, don't we have to get the money from another account?
Well, we were directed to add an additional 10 mail rooms for 2018 after the budget was adopted, which is the reason for the variance.
But aren't we supposed to get it from a supplemental account? I mean, if we're so over, are we not? So shouldn't we have voted to get the money to that from a supplemental account so that we had enough? Did we?
So procedurally, you voted to.
Procedurally,
Yeah, you
we
voted.
are.
You voted to direct us to do 10 more.
And did we vote to where we were getting the money from?
Sure we did.
Did we?
I'm sure. I mean, I don't think Vanessa would just.
It
do
was-
without
it
No,
approval.
It was taken from the Garden Villa mail room renovation, and that's why it's reported as as an over expenditure of that account.
But no,
So it was taken from reserve, is that?
From
but
reserve.
it's all reserves.
Right.
Understood,
reserve.
understand that.
So, but we have a supplemental account, so if a reserve account is going to go over what is in the budget, we take it from the supplemental account. So I don't know, I don't remember, forgive me, I don't remember if we
No,
took
so
it.
perhaps we should have done a supplemental for it. Is that what you're saying?
So I guess then we should talk to Betty and make sure that that's done. I'm surprised she didn't get us on it.
We should have done a supplemental, that's what you're
Okay.
saying, yeah.
All right, so I could ask her. And then, there is another account, the prior to paint was way over, and this last year, that's an operations account, or is it a reserve account?
That's a reserve account, right. And
And did we get a supplemental on that from something?
I don't believe we did.
All right, I'm going to have to, so I'm going to have to, I'll just talk to her. And the thing is so in a sense, See, every time we go to the finance meeting, we never discuss the M&C account.
Right.
Because we're told it's up to M&C to discuss the M&C account. So I'm gonna have to, because I
Yeah.
would think that we would wanna have it very clean.
Sure, and that's a conversation that I had with Betty this morning at our executive meeting, is that, if you look at the bottom line on the replacement fund, we're really 26% better. So, it would be nice if we could have the flexibility
But
to use
we-
those funds if your overall account is better, if you're in the positive. In this case, we're in the positive
Yeah,
26%.
and I agree with you, but on the other side, the reason why it is in the positive also is because we never, ever we didn't really spend much in the dry rot account.
That's right.
So then we could say, oh, good, we're gonna spend that, and then we could so we should, for whatever we should do with her, we should keep it clean. So I'll talk to her about that. And my next question is, and this sort of throws our laundry stuff account, because we spent more in laundry appliances than we budgeted, and we spent more in appliance repairs than we budgeted.
May I? Part of that may have been the rekeying of the boxes of the washers.
Did that go in there?
So.
You know?
So we're discussing, I'm not really sure.
Just down
But
the
we're
line.
The total budget was $24,000 on that.
Yeah, and we already spent
And
46.
we spent 46, that's
Well,
correct.
that's like,
I don't have an expanded view of that, so I can't tell you.
no,
where
so
to-
yeah, so again, that would be another, I mean, we have the money in that account. Because we have enough in that laundry appliance reserve account to be able to buy all the dryers. So, but I just am amazed that we spent that much, because for years, we've been spending under budget. It's interesting. All right, so those are my questions. So I guess the biggest thing is, I should go over with Betty why, if we're really over, why we aren't making sure that, did we do supplementals? Yes, Swamy? Please, come up.
I was just reading over the financial this morning. On the replacement, most of the time we know it's not underspent, is the project delay. So it's very hard to, by looking at a number, 26% is good, but you may be 50% behind the schedule. So that number doesn't tell you a whole lot. But however, I do have a concern, is I don't know what's the procedure, is I see we are way over on the compensation. And mostly it's in the M&C area, department. And my question is, especially most of those overspending is in the operating, not the reserve account. So my question is, what's the process? If you have to hire more people than budgeted headcount, what's the procedure for getting more money? Because in total for third, but we as of November, we were over budget on the headcount, on the compensation and benefit, about 400,000, I think, probably 300,000, 200,000 or 300,000 from MNC. That's based on my memory. So my question now is, we need to get clear, what's the process to getting additional headcount or additional help, temporary help, or additional hours? That's my question.
Yeah, and if I may, I think that.
Thank you, Wei Ming.
Yeah, I think that, I don't believe that the head count was over. In fact, I know that we have significant salary savings because we've had a lot of vacancies throughout the year. That is likely outside services that we maybe have availed ourselves of to make up for the.
Temporary, because it's under wage.
That is correct. Temporary and consultant services, right, to make up for the vacancies that we've had.
Wage, so it
That-
has to be wage, not the company. that
Right.
we're paying to.
Yeah, so it's very likely because I know that we've operated at a deficit for, not at a deficit, but we haven't had overages in our staffing. In fact, we've been understaffed throughout the whole year. So there's considerable salary savings related to that.
But that's a good point, because whenever we see anything where it's like that, and I know if anything, they are running short as opposed to having extra people, that sometimes there could be an error in being charged for something that we shouldn't be charged for. So I think that that's something that we should just have to go over separately with Betty, and make sure we raise that tomorrow, too.
Yeah, that could very well be that there's a miscoding on the funds.
Okay, so I'll write that down. All right, thank you. John has his hand up.
Yes, John.
So some of this has been kind of addressed, but I wanted to get some specifics from you when I was comparing the 2018 and 2019 budget. You did a great job of writing up the descriptions and details of all the different programs. So I was curious of what explained the paint programs and the paving and concrete have been raised dramatically. I mean, combined almost $1 million. But there was nothing mentioned in the details of your write-up in the notes as to, additional work or some out of the ordinary repair that would call for that kind of increase. So I was curious if you had some details of why they're being raised so dramatically.
That's a very good point. A lot of that is predicated on the fact that the board directed us to reallocate some of the funding from operating to reserves. So prior years, you didn't have that. In fact, I'm looking at the budget, you had zeros, for prior years, and all of a sudden, you have a $252,000 expenditure in there. And that, as I said, is predicated on the fact that the board, during the budget process, directed us to actually reallocate the funding to reserves from operating. So you'll see a significant change in your operating as well. And that's, and I'm particularly referring to the Prior to Paint program. All right, the paving, the concrete paving, that is, let's see, 936.
Yeah, if I'm reading it right, the paving ran at a surplus, meaning you over budgeted, and now
we
we've
were-
added even more money to it.
That is correct. The concrete replacement, actually, let's see, it was at 597, and we're budgeting 844.
Concrete?
Yeah, most of this.
And
yeah,
I
this-
bring it up simply because well, obviously, we all want to know what the numbers are about, but we were talking about mailboxes.
No, it says concrete.
Chair Boada had talked about maybe allocating funds for improving or accelerating the drain pipe program, because we're getting so much in cost on leaks and plumbing that anywhere we could find money to reallocate, that would be a great discussion to have.
Absolutely. In the paving and concrete, actually, the board reduced their budget. We requested $150,000 to address broken concrete with our paving program, and they reduced that to $50,000.
No.
Yeah, it was reduced to $50,000. So the increases that you're seeing in this program from 597,000 to 844 are actually coming from general services. Now, general services has your reactive, if you would, we have two programs for concrete as well as paving. One is reactive, one is proactive. Maintenance and construction manages the proactive program, and that's your large paving that we do throughout the community based on the schedule. And we also do concrete with that. We used to do it at a tune of $150. This year, we have $50,000 for it. But the reactive program is within general services. And what they do is they address tickets and they address calls for service. Your broken sidewalk, your damaged curb. So they go out there and they address that. I believe that the director from general services increased those amounts based on the number of tickets that the department was experiencing at the time.
Where were those dollars allocated last year? I mean, in other words, are we expecting more tickets for concrete this year than last year?
Okay, I have the answer for that is we never used to put any money in there. Remember?
There's
We
a big,
never
there's
have-
I mean, I guess to simplify, how is this different from last year's expectations? Because the numbers are all there last year, we had a surplus.
Well, in the lines, if you look at your budget, actually there, a lot of that money was moved from operatings to reserves. So there was no money there to begin with, and then money was added. And there's an equal decrease in your operating budget. So that's the only thing I can tell you about those funds. Again, they're from another department. They're not from maintenance and construction. They're managed from general services. But I believe that that was the direction that was given to staff to move operating expenditures to reserve expenditures.
Would the figures from 2018 for general services be in the actual dollars as I look at the paving account? Would those
don't-
dollars already be included in there?
No,
So
no.
where would I find those?
That's in
In
the
the
operating
finance
budget.
committee
So if you go to your operating budget and you look at your paving, maintenance, and repairs. If you look at that, you'll see that all of your years prior to this, it says 17, is it? Starting 17? All the way up to 2015, they're populated with funding. Okay? But then they're zeroed out in 2019. So again,
Because we
that was-
moved it to reserve.
That's correct. So that was board direction that we reallocate those expenditures from your operating to your reserve funding. So that's why you're seeing those big increases in reserve. But then you have equal decreases in operating.
The finance committee meeting.
Does
The
that
thing
help you,
is
John?
getting- You know, but.
A little bit.
But John, we really, Steve isn't back, Jack isn't here, but this entire expenditures thing is a nightmare because, and this isn't yours, Ernesto, but how many conversations did we have about the landscape modernization account? And it shows zero.
Yeah.
And so I have no idea. I mean, because we said, what are we going, remember how many conversations? And we voted what we were going to put in it because we said, it's not modernization anymore, it's slope this. And it's zero there. So, to me,
It went to a
this
million.
entire report, I have no idea as to, there are a lot, when I saw that zero, I couldn't believe it. So it seems, and again, Ernesto, we're not touching on yours, but there's a lot of problems in here, so.
Be able to talk about this tomorrow?
Yeah,
the
I'm
finance
going,
committee would be a
yeah,
better idea.
we're gonna go over it. We
Yeah,
have to
that's,
really.
you can
yeah.
bring it up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Betty should have the causation of those changes,
Right.
because we, as staff, provided to her during the budget process.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely correct. There's a big increase in landscape modernization from 215 to a million. So, but those.
Yeah, but then this year, the actual year-to-date is zero,
Yeah, there was no money spent.
but we did spend it. Maybe we put it into maintenance labor. No, I'm kidding.
Or may,
In janitor, no, I mean,
All
there's
right.
something wrong here, so
Let's
we have to
keep
fix it
moving-
tomorrow.
Moving
Okay.
forward, yeah. James had a.
Yeah,
had-
well,
had to
my
say
question
something.
is, this is for the tree maintenance. We allocated $150,000. Right now, here shows over budget
Well,
161,000.
that is not,
does
that's not
include that.
Ernesto.
MNC.
150,000.
Ernesto does not handle tree
I guess,
maintenance.
oh, for tree maintenance?
I mean,
No, no,
please,
no,
he
for
doesn't,
tree maintenance.
yeah, he doesn't handle that.
Yeah, tree maintenance is in general services. So,
We better
I
ask
guess
Betty.
that does not include that
Yeah.
150,000.
Kurt Women is now in charge of.
Yeah,
So
but
maybe
we're-
we should move it out of this budget.
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
But,
I've
okay,
been asking for that for a while, and I've been told, no, you can't.
We'll
Because you
straighten that
live
out
to,
tomorrow.
if we have a
at the-
question, we gotta ask, all right?
all right, but
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
this one, he's the wrong one.
What you're saying is right, James, but the wrong venue.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow is.
We'll
the right
ask it
time.
tomorrow.
Save up for
Yeah.
the questions for
Yeah,
tomorrow.
please write them down so you don't forget.
I'm gonna be up all night preparing.
Of course. So, are you done with your program report? Sorry, the
No, that was the
maintenance
question, no,
variance?
those were the questions on the financial report. I
Yeah.
think that we have sort of finished them for
Right.
now.
I do have, though, I did pull the project log.
Right.
Because I wanted to touch base very briefly.
Yes.
On a couple projects. The first is your gutter cleaning program. That's $139,000 budgeted for that. That project is now completed. Your project log says it'll be completed in December. I just want to let you know that it was completed on time. The trash chute repairs, just wanted to let you know that we've completed 75 of the trash chutes out of the 81 that we programmed to do. So it's, again, the information is just an update from what you have in front of you.
You
And-
have the updated financials on that too? How's that coming?
The financials come from finance, and they lag a month.
Okay,
So, that's why sometimes
no worries.
I try to update you here if I get the financials before the meeting, but they come from finance. And then the other item that I wanted to talk about was, it was Shepherd's Crooks, we talked about, so that's it.
We talked about the laundry equipment, we talked about everything.
So I'm done, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Wait,
do you have something to say?
I have a question on the buildings, the new signage. I have gotten a lot of compliments from people. The only thing that I think is, two things. I don't
We were
think
going to
that,
talk about that in number 12.
we are?
Yeah, CDS and building address
Okay,
signs.
I take my question back.
Okay. Yes, John, you had something to say?
We're gonna be talking about cul-de-sac signage, so if you,
Yeah.
you know, if
We'll,
you have a
we'll,
comment.
we'll hang on to that.
Okay.
question.
Very
Okay,
good.
then I could finish my apple.
Yeah.
All right,
Yes, go ahead.
Item number 12,
Project log, item number 12?
yes,
No,
the
he's.
item number
no,
12 on the project
law,
law.
project
Okay.
law.
And we did 20 buildings. There's no discussion in here about, what about the rest of the buildings?
That is correct. That's a very good observation. Unfortunately, last year, we spent most of our year reviewing and doing programs and writing reports, and we were never able to get to the actual meat of it, which is actually doing work on the buildings. So there were 15 buildings that were arrived at as needing work. We added an additional 5, so we'll be doing the 20 that the report had come up with. This year is going to be a little bit different. This year, we're going to be running out of the gate. We have 40 buildings that we propose to do, and we're going to start doing those right away. So the funding that you have allocated for this year, which is $1 million again, we're going to be spending all that money for you.
So what's driving this thing? Are we going to hire the consultant to go back and look at the buildings, or are we going to use
No.
prior to paint?
No, we're going to use the work that the consultant put together, which is all of the standard detailing, architectural standard detailing that we have. They also came up with unit prices for replacement of the various items. So we're going to use that information to put the projects out to bid and have the contractors actually bid on the amount that they find based on the unit prices that we have established.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the consultant set some standards, and staff is going to use those standards to continue to develop the dry rot program.
That is correct. That is correct. So we are budgeting the amount that you gave us to spend, and we will work with the contractor as they do their inspections and they find the dry rot that needs to be replaced or remediated. And we'll use our standards that the consultant came up with and the unit prices for replacing each one of those elements.
And you'll do that in conjunction to prior to paint?
Absolutely, yeah, because prior to paint is essentially another element that you have in the mutual to address dry rot. So we'll make sure that wherever prior to paint is going to be going, that we leave those for prior to paint rather than jumping in front of them.
Did it answer your question, John?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have another question on walkway lights. It says, which is item 14. If you look down there, walkway lighting is the last item in 14, and you're saying that gates 5, 6, 7, and 8 now have been awarded. And my question was, well, what about gate 10, there's a lot of, and what about gate 14? Are there no walkway lights in those areas?
That is correct. The 5, 6, 7, and 8 is where your walkway lighting was, and we've addressed that. We've actually awarded a contract, and we replaced all of your walkway lighting there. Our next effort is really not within the mutual. We're going to be addressing your clubhouses. They have outdated walkway lighting, but it has nothing to do with the mutual. But we did complete the gates 5, 6, 7, and 8, so that program is completed.
But John, we also said that once we addressed the street lights and the street light installation, and we were able to see the community with lights, we would be able to determine where we needed lights. You know, like,
I'm not talking about streetlights, I'm talking about
no,
walkways.
I'm talking
You're right.
about, once the street lights are done and you get the maximum effect
Oh.
of the street lights, it can help us to determine where else we would need
How
lights.
much more we need to do with the walkway lights, if we do need to supplement? So,
That answers my question. Thank you.
awesome, thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
On number 13, the elevator tile floor replacement, you did elevator in 4005, and I wrote you a note, because I didn't know you were on vacation, and I said that there's big pieces, so the elevator was redone, it looks lovely, but there's the ugly floor, and big pieces of grouting were missing. And then somebody wrote back, because you weren't here, that floor is going to be replaced.
That's correct.
It's not on the list. It says building was replaced, new installation, so will that go on as a two?
It'll go on in your next update.
Okay.
Yeah. It will be replaced.
Okay, if there are no further questions, we can move to the next item, which is number 11, revision to fumigation program notification.
So, Mr. Chair, this is essentially an update. The staff was asked to, and the communication division was asked to review all communication pieces that are sent or supplied to residents of buildings scheduled to be fumigated. It was thought that the fumigation notices are fairly complicated and they have many attachments to it. And it was felt that they could be improved on. So the goal was, again, to simplify the message and amount of information put out to the residents. So communication staff met, I believe, with Director DeLorenzo for feedback, and also met with our staff in maintenance and operations to get the background and fact-checking. The update is that they're still working on it, so I don't have an updated piece of communication for you. And
When do you need it?
Where is, yeah, that was my question still.
When do you start?
When do we start?
yeah, we won't need it for a little while, so they do have ample time to put it together.
Well, I mean, because they've
But we'll-
already had it for 3 months or 2 months at least, because I
We'll-
had my breakdown 3
We'll
months
touch
ago.
base, we'll touch base
But
with
that was the
Eileen.
old update. Now
No,
we're
no,
gonna get a new-
after they did my fumigation and we noticed all of the flaws in the program, I met with them and they said they were going to redo it. I would have thought, so that was months ago, so we don't want her, that, so when do you start?
We will send out the notices in April for the May
So
program.
we just have
do-
to make
So
sure
we
they.
don't have it ready yet
Well,
because,
it's, no, but the thing is you can't wait till the last minute. They'll be in there running, what?
yes, sir.
The fumigation letter is on the communications committee agenda for Wednesday.
Okay,
So you better
you got
come.
your answer?
All right, so hopefully you'll have it in time.
Okay,
We'll get with communication on that.
thank you.
And hopefully it'll be better.
There's a Garden Villa meeting Thursday. Washers, any sense for that?
There's the president right there.
Okay,
The
I
next
think we're
item,
meeting- Yeah,
Mr.
next
Chair?
item is cul-de-sac and building address sign installation update.
This is actually a good story. We, in May last year, you directed staff to fabricate and install 70 oval address signs and selected buildings in Gate 14 and cul-de-sac to 12. We did install all those signs, and the project was completed in August sometime. The enhancement to the signs and replacement of the small little football signs that we have was very well received by residents. I've gotten many, many good comments, as well as board members. So we were very pleased that we were able to pull that off. Then we were requested, we received direction to fabricate and install cul-de-sac signs at Gate 14 and along Via Mariposa East and West, Gates 5 and 6. The installation of the new cul-de-sac signs on Gate 14 and Mariposa East and West are in progress, and we're scheduled to have those completed this week, actually. We had said in there that by the end of the fiscal year, there was a little glitch, so we were not able to do that, but they'll be done this week. So a total of 250 cul-de-sac signs are planned to be installed in the community by 2020, which will complete all of the cul-de-sac sign installations. The obvious ones, there's some that are tricky, and we will address those after we get done with the low-hanging fruit. So this year, this week, again, we'll complete the installation of 51 signs in 2018. For 2019, we're supposed to do 122 signs, for which you've already provided funding through the budget for. And then in 2020, we plan to completely address all of the cul-de-sac signs, and that will be done within the budgeted amounts that you've given us. So that's really my update on that. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ernesto. I think we got some great comments. Some of them even mistook them for being lighted signs because
It's so bright.
So the reflection was so awesome that people mistook it for being lighted. And I think that is a great plus and win for us, that people are appreciating it. Obviously, as you noted, there are some areas that need to have more in-depth attention to get the proper signage.
So
Rosemary, you had a-
these are my questions. Number one, and I always have this, it seems that every once in a while, one of the signs is lower than the other ones. So I don't know, I mean, I go and I really look at it carefully because.
The cul-de-sac signs you're talking about?
Yeah,
Some of them are.
yeah. Some of them seem a little bit lower. And for that, you have to be really careful because on one of them that seemed lower, then they have leaves growing in front of it, so the sign, you can't see the sign. So I think that when they're installing the signs, they have to be very careful to have it at the right height because you don't want to install it where you can't see it. But if it's being installed where we have greenery or weeds, whatever in front of it, we have to have it removed, otherwise it makes the sign not worth it. So if I see any like that look low, or you can't see it, I'll send you an email. And
Please do,
that.
yeah.
So we should do that. But the other thing is I myself don't like the way it looks to have the new sign and the old sign on the top. And because I'm finicky. It looks to me tacky. Were we planning on taking the old signs off? I mean,
We can make an effort to do that.
no, I mean, I just think, the new signs are great, but leaving the old signs still on it makes it junkifies it.
It looks like it's incomplete, so we'll
Yeah,
make a
it-
notice
so
of that,
it-
so
so-
that the old sign is removed.
So did you, this is just a question, don't give me that Ernesto look. Were we planning on taking them down, the old signs? And how much is that gonna, I just think it's like, you painted a room and you left chips on the floor,
Yeah,
strips and chips.
Yeah, there's,
And it doesn't look good, and then tell me it's gonna cost $9 million to remove
shouldn't
them.
cost
no,
$0.
frankly, I don't know what the cost would be to actually remove them. We wanted to deploy the signs as quickly as possible without adding additional cost to the program, and we wanted to get as many cul-de-sac signs out there as possible.
Okay,
So
but
we
is
did
that a plan? Are you going to come back to us with how much it's going to cost to remove it, or are we just going to remove them when you have time, or what?
I could certainly come back with a plan to remove them, if that's the desired. On the building signs, I did leave some of the existing building signs in
Yeah.
place. There's some redundancy to that, and I wasn't particularly happy about the look of the new nice sign and the old signs. But I felt that the redundancy was good. If you didn't look good, then you didn't look here, you can look here and you still see a number. So we left some of them. In some areas, we did remove them because they were too close to the new signs, because it just looked junky, like you said.
Well,
You know,
yeah, like
but-
in my building, 4015, it has an extra sign because it was a test. So here we have a 4015 at the second half of the building, which shouldn't really have it. And next door is the building 4014, and they have the little teeny sign right next to one another.
Right.
And that looks.
Yeah, I mean,
that-
we could, it's entirely up to the board, we can remove them. I felt that the redundancy, where they were too close together, like within, I think that the criteria that I gave staff, if they're within 10 feet, then remove it and put the new one. But if they were farther apart than that, I told them, go ahead and leave them, because it'll provide additional redundancy and will, more visibility as to the numbers.
And then when you repainted the building, you were going to,
We could remove them then.
That would be the
yeah,
right
that's,
time
that's
to
what
remove.
that's what he had
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
For that, that's what he was going to do, but for the cul-de-sac signs, you need a plan.
Rosemary, that whole building sign item is a whole project or a big event thing, I would say, because I did an extensive study of buildings all along the Via Mariposa, and I found that some buildings had 4 little signs, some had 8, some had 4 designs, some had 1 design. So it's a whole big multitude of different things. So we'll have to attack this as a separate item. Right now, let's put these big new signs up.
What we did, oh, the
No,
cul-de-sac
more,
signs.
all of them, no. Only a few buildings had the signs, not all
Well,
of
is
them.
is that part of your plan to finish putting the big signs on the garden villas or no?
Not only
after-
Garden Villas, on
after-
all the buildings
we
in the
don't-
Third Mutual.
We don't have that in our budget.
After we complete the cul-de-sac signs,
Yes.
our charge will be to start doing the building signs.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
But
So,
are you planning on doing it this year? I don't think you have enough
No,
money.
no.
we don't have the budget
We don't
in
have the funding for it.
2019, but we will appropriate some for 2020.
But at some point in time, you might decide to complete, I know Roy will get upset about this, complete the garden villas. Because they were big, they were, they were big.
No, of course.
And we thought we were going to, so if at some point in time, if you have extra time, you might
We'll have a
decide.
special meeting for the
Signs.
street signs.
Okay.
Yes, John?
I'd like to ask our sign consultant on costs. Steve, $250 for a building sign and $300 for cul-de-sac. Can you live with those costs, or do you have any heartburn?
What's the size of the project? I mean, so what I understand from the discussion here today is that 70 signs were put up on the garden villas.
At $250.
Well, that's 70 signs. How many buildings was that? Was it 70 buildings?
No.
Right.
Yeah.
No, we didn't only put them up on the garden villas. They were also put up at gate 6. Signs, building signs.
On garden villas in gate 6.
No,
No, there are no garden villas.
But you
Well,
put
yeah, there
building
are actually
signs.
around Mariposa,
Yeah.
but
So,
we did cul-de-sac
so you have 70 signs at that cost, and that went on how many buildings?
Yeah, that I don't know, because
Right,
some buildings
so-
receive more
So
than
when you
one.
ask
Two.
me
Yeah.
The
what I
most a
think about
building-
that
the most a building-
expenditure,
the
My-
most a building received was 2.
right, because in many of the previous discussions we've had about this through the years has been that some buildings have 4 or 5 signs. And I
They
asked,
have or they needed it?
they have.
So
And
there
I-
are some buildings that have 8 signs. So it's very random the way it was done. There was no thought process the way they did it.
So,
So,
when, years ago, looking at this, one of the things I asked was, is there a requirement from the fire authority to where the signs have to be, i.e., if you approach LH21 building and you're driving up on the curb, there's a number sign on the front. Then when you get inside, or if it's cul-de-sac, do you have to have an address sign at each one of the stairwells? Do you have to have an address sign at the main entrance? This is where you get into the number, and you know, when the signs were put up years and years and years ago, the old plexiglass signs, no one was ever able to, I mean, back in the VMS days, no one was able to give an answer why there were 5 signs on some buildings and 3 on another or 2 on the other. So one of the questions I asked last year was, do we have to comply with the fire authority standard so that when they pull their, equipment in, that, it's got to be at the cul-de-sac, it's got to be on the street, it's got to be on each one of the staircases that go up either on a Garden Villa or the LH21. So,
Ernesto has an answer for that.
Mr. Chairman, while we did not consult the fire authority, this is considered to be an enhancement to what you have. So the visibility of these signs and these numbers has been enhanced. So if anything, I think it's an improvement to
Right.
whatever was there. So we did not really consult with the fire authority on it.
So I think that's one of the things you have to determine, because if you've done 70 of these new signs at the $242 apiece, and you're going to continue with that sign in that size on X number of more buildings, how many signs are you going to have to do on each building? If you have buildings where you have 5 signs, and they're not required, because who knows why VMS put up 4 signs on one building and 5 on another? I mean, did somebody know someone who was the sign manufacturer in Lake Forest?
No, the sign hanger.
The sign hanger? Because those old signs were made in Lake Forest.
Right.
By a
Like
small
I
shop.
mentioned earlier, this is a whole new Pandora's box, which we are probably going to open in a few months for the next stage. Because currently we are going to continue with the cul-de-sac signs, and after that is done, my goal is to have all these big signs on every building in the Third Mutual.
So,
So at that time, we
in
will
reference to
visit
his
this-
question,
Yeah.
on the cost of this for $242 for a building sign and $300 for a cul-de-sac sign, right? You have to extrapolate that on as to how many signs are you going to put up, right?
Well,
A lot.
you could ask if it's a good value for the sign cost and not worry about the total quantity till we know what the fire department requires.
Which we don't have an answer.
So
about the
again,
fire,
it'd
right?
be great to hear your thoughts on what we're paying per sign.
Well, the signs are expensive because they are large. I mean, we talked.
They're large and they have traffic
Yeah.
rating
Right,
on the.
they're traffic
reflective-
rated,
Luminescent, yeah.
reflective quality.
Correct.
Custom, I mean, they're,
So
and
we have-
each sign is custom, because it's one number. It's not like you want to buy 500 Avenue signs, or 500 Park signs, or whatever it is.
But
So,
We have got thoughts on that, and we are considering it, but since we are not in that process, we are not discussing it at that detailed stage.
My request is, please be sure you put Steve on your sign committee.
Yes, of course, yeah, I need everybody's view and thought process.
Well, let's not ignore the fact that last year we had a big committee, we worked on it, we went to the houses, we'd established the places for the signs.
Right.
So we don't have to start from scratch.
Correct.
Okay,
We've
good.
already been, I mean, from A through Z, we're already at P, so.
No, we're past that, because we're on A, B, C, and there's a few more like D. So
I
we're up
said
to
at
M.
P,
Oh, I thought you said B.
no. Lynn, you had a thought.
I agree with you, let's talk about it another time.
Yes, this is not the right time, because
Next October,
maybe.
because I'll be off the board.
No, but we're going to bring you in as a special consultant. Okay, so we just did the cul-de-sac signs?
So, and Ernesto, just so that you're gonna get back to us by our March meeting as to what it would cost to remove the stuff in the cul-de-sac, from the signs.
I'll have a price for
Zero.
you.
No.
Yeah, because they're putting this sign, they just have to climb up and remove
Well,
it.
Maybe we should wait to take anything down until we get the whole fire thing and decide
no,
what
I
the-
said we're just gonna have a cost.
I
There's not
gotcha.
gonna be a fire thing on those. Those are the street signs. But the other thing is it is all of our responsibility as we're driving around, if we see any of the cul-de-sac signs that look
Up or
not
down?
lower, I've never seen them too high, we should report it. There's one up by us. So we should, how high are they supposed to be? Should I go out with a measuring stick?
No, they're typically,
Be visible from your car.
they're typically, yeah, the tall signs,
Headlights.
the street signage is typically about 6 and a
No,
half,
the
7
new
feet.
ones you put up.
Oh, the ones they're just waist high.
Well, some of them are knee-high
No.
for a short person.
They may have slipped down.
Maybe the sign sunk in,
Yeah.
I'm sure. All right,
Who's,
I think
who's
it's time to-
installing the signs? Who's installing the cul-de-sac signs?
Our
Staff?
staff, yeah.
So,
So
Contractor is installing them for us.
Contractor? Okay.
has the contractor been given a specification for the height?
Yes, they
of
have.
the sign?
so,
Is staff,
We have, if you say that there's some that are lower than others, I need to check on that.
Yeah.
Because my understanding was that they were supposed to go a certain height.
yeah,
So
no, like some of them are a little bit lower.
So
They
it-
look,
so it sounds like staff has to go back and check the contractor's work.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. I mean,
Okay.
if they're lower, then we'll make sure that they get adjusted.
okay.
So, moving on, we are at item number 13, which is street light acquisition update.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to give you, not an abbreviated, but more of a robust, update on where we're at with this. Many of you have not been in the committee and have not followed this issue closely, but in third, there's a total of 788 streetlight fixtures on 768 streetlight poles. In September 2017, the board approved a purchase and sale agreement with Southern California Edison to acquire the street. You don't have a report on this, by the way? It's a
No.
No, you don't. This is
That's
item
number
number
14.
13, which is an oral presentation from me. So essentially, the oral presentation is on the status of the acquisition of the streetlights, but I wanted to give you a little bit more meat than that so that you know where this comes from. So in September 17th, the board approved the purchase and sale agreement for the light structures from Southern California Edison. In February, the board of 2018, last year, the board approved a contract to award to Siemens Industries to provide consultant services, not only to assist us with the acquisition with Southern California Edison, but also to help us with the transition of the fixtures to LED. The current fixtures that you have are high-power sodium, and they're very ineffective in providing light as well as the energy usage. Siemens was also retained to provide a maintenance and operations services for us for the next 3 years. So included with the Siemens contract was to provide a pilot program to select the appropriate lighting fixtures to be installed throughout Third Mutual. In December, Edison provided us the results of their audit of the lights, which is part of the process of acquiring the infrastructure. And we took that audit and transmitted it to Siemens. Siemens is doing their own audit on our behalf to make sure that the figures that Southern California Edison came up with are correct. So at this point, we will be going back to Southern California Edison with the results of our audit. And once we reconcile those two audits, they will send us a bill for the infrastructure. So we're anticipating that that'll occur in February. Until we have acquired the infrastructure, we really cannot do anything with it. We cannot do any conversion, we cannot do any pilots, we cannot do anything. But what we wanted to do is to get going with the selection of a pilot program. So the report number 14 is just to do that. So that was my update on the acquisition. That's where the acquisition is at right now. Now I'll jump into item number 14, which is the streetlight pilot program update. So for this, you do have a report that we prepared for you. So in September, as I mentioned, in 2017, the board approved the purchase agreement to acquire the infrastructure from Southern California Edison. And in September 2018, they awarded a contract to Siemens to help us with the acquisition process, as well as to convert the lights to LED for us, and to enter into a 3-year maintenance and operations agreement with us to maintain the infrastructure. There are approximately 65 Cobra head styles and 723 mushroom head styles, high-power sodium fixtures in the mutual, of which all of it needs to be upgraded to LED. Siemens had looked at this, and they provided 3 products which they're recommending to convert to the existing 723 mushroom head fixtures from high-power sodium to LED. The first one is a full replacement with what they call the Kin Luminaire, and it's a mushroom top style fixture to replace the current top fixtures with LED elements. The second proposal is to retrofit the existing fixtures with what they call the Simply LED product, which reuses the existing fixture and the exterior housing and replaces the high-power sodium elements with LED elements. The third item is to convert the Cobra head fixture and change the mushroom head fixture to a Cobra head. The Cobra head is the typical fixture that you see in public streets, which is an extension from the pole that puts the light right on the roadway. Right, so as part of the contract, Siemens will conduct a pilot program where up to 10 fixtures are temporarily installed to determine which LED product will be used to replace the existing high-power fixtures. The pilot is intended to afford Third Board and the community members the opportunity to review the actual functioning fixtures and assess their effectiveness and aesthetics before a decision is made to purchase them. Siemens has looked at this in detail and recommends that the 3 products, the full replacement, the retrofit, and the Cobra head, be included in the pilot program by installing them along straight street with consistent pole spacings such as Avenida Sosiega. I have attached Siemens' analysis of the fixtures that they're recommending, and I want to point out a couple of things in that attachment. On page 1 of the attachment, I'd like to call your attention to Table 1, which is essentially they've listed all the 5 fixtures that they reviewed, and they provided you prices, the wattages, and total annual savings to be realized from the installation of that particular fixture.
I have a question about that analysis. Does the savings, and maybe this is covered elsewhere, but is that net out maintenance costs that we're inheriting by purchasing these fixtures?
No, it does not. It's the net savings realized from the base cost of operating the fixtures right now, as what it's anticipated for the upgrade to LED.
But there will be some additional maintenance costs that we're taking this all over, right?
There will be, yeah, there's maintenance costs associated with it. Bear in mind that your maintenance cost is really going to go down significantly particularly because there is a warranty period
Okay.
for the fixtures. So you can't, but these fixtures get hit by cars, tree branches, so there's a variety of things. And Siemens would be required to upgrade anything that gets damaged or any fixture that is not operating as guaranteed.
That's for 3 years, you said?
3 years, 3 years. So
Ernesto,
the other thing that I want. Yes, sir.
Question?
those maintenance things, if somebody hits the pole, it would be more of an insurance claim.
Typically,
Not a maintenance cost.
typically we go after the insurance to recover the cost, but the first thing we would do is call maintenance, in this case Siemens, to come over and do the replacement.
Yeah.
And then the cost will be offset through the insurance.
Correct, yeah, so it may not be a bottom line cost, it may be a maintenance cost, which can be covered by the insurance collection.
Right, in those cases, yeah, it will be an insurance
The
cost. so
other
it-
thing
yeah.
which would be important to note would be that these LED light fixtures or the lamps would last much longer than the regular lamp, and that, the replacement of that LED light would be a much longer time before we have to do a replacement.
That's correct. They have a much longer life than your high-power sodium.
But
Question? It looks to me, and I'm not an electrical engineer, but it looks to me like the photometrics on the King is 3 times that of any of the others. And if that's the case, is it?
We can talk about the photometric. Let me just point out a couple more things in the report, and then I'll get into the photometrics.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the other item that I wanted to point out in Siemens analysis is table 2 on page 2. And what this does is that it lists all the options that they've analyzed from highest to the lowest performance. They're recommending the first 3 options, 1, 2, and 3, to be deployed for a pilot for your consideration. The other thing that I like to mention is that as you look, particularly as you look at the photometrics for each one of these fixtures, bear in mind that the system, it's already designed. It was designed many years ago. And that's a fixed fact. We cannot change that. The unfortunate reality is that these fixtures occur on one side of the street. If you look at any public roadway, you'll notice that the fixtures stagger the road. And that's done for a reason, so you can provide adequate coverage. The fixtures that were installed here were really not installed with the mindset of safety. They were more installed with the mindset of aesthetics, to provide an ambience rather than provide adequate safety. So we're stuck with that. We're stuck with the original design of this of the fixtures, which is fairly poor relative to the illumination. The other thing that we need to consider is the makeup of our community, which demands the best possible lighting that we can possibly get.
And the measure of that, by the way, for our attendees here is photometrics.
It's the photometrics, it's an analysis that is done, and that analysis in this case was done through a computer, which takes the characteristics of the fixture and spreads it given certain criteria provided to the computer. In this case, a 36-foot roadway, a 7-foot offset, the fact that the light fixtures are on one side of the street and not on the other. So those are provided in the report.
What page are we reading that on?
Those are provided in the report, starting on page 5, and they analyze the photometrics for each one of the fixtures. So you can have a look at that. The energy savings comparisons, as I mentioned, were based on the baseline of the fixtures that we have right now, a total annual estimated cost about $105,000 as compared to the estimated cost to operate the various fixtures. That analysis, it's on page 10, so you can take a look at that, and that's how they arrived at the annual savings
So
for each one of these
I
fixtures.
have to ask, though, if we're purchasing the fixtures, wouldn't it be safe, new to all this, but if we didn't own them, wasn't it the responsibility of the electric company to maintain them when they own them?
The
Okay,
mutual.
right, go
the-
ahead.
Yeah, the mutual has a contract with Southern California, which is a really odd contract. No, there's no public utility that does this. But we paid not only the energy costs, but we actually lease the fixtures from them.
Right.
And
Enough
it's,
And,
you know, it's a,
and tell them how long it takes for them to fix a light
I
bulb.
have one example here.
You
as
don't want to
far-
know.
I just want to get a gauge of the
No, but like, we could have a light out for 6 months, a pole down
I
for
got
2
what I
months.
needed.
You got it? All right, but-
Longer than that pull down.
So it was,
Didn't mean to take us there, just wanted to get the precautions.
well, we wanted to show you how thorough we are.
Very.
So anyway, bottom line, this is the report. Staff concurs with Siemens' proposal to deploy this pilot. We would like to deploy the pilot, as I mentioned, in Avenida Sosiega. Would like to deploy the fixtures that they are recommending, which are 1, 2, and 3 in page 2 of their analysis. What they propose to do is to, Sosiega, because it's a straight roadway, it will provide the best, your best ability to assess the fixtures. And what they propose to do is to deploy 3 fixtures for each of the categories that they've selected, then skip 2 high-power sodiums, and then deploy another fixture 3 times, and then skip another 2 high-power sodium and do the other fixture. That'll give you the best visual and feeling for the type of lighting that you're getting, for the energy on the lighting, whether it's at 3,000 Kelvin, which is what they're proposing, versus a different Kelvin. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to get concurrence from this committee to do that. Bear in mind that
Could you say where it is again that they want to do it?
Avenida Sosiega.
Where? The whole thing?
A stretch.
Actually, no, there's a segment, and it would be from, let's see, from Monte Hermoso to, let's see. Oh, I don't have.
Okay,
the
I'll look at the
location,
map.
But I can provide you the location.
No,
Hey,
be-
Ernesto,
be-
location.
be-
didn't you review all this with the Special Energy Committee? I
We
seen-
did, I did make a presentation to the Energy
Yeah,
Committee.
did they have a recommendation that we could?
They
The,
had many.
they had many, but the basic
No,
thing
in terms
is,
of the pilot, just the pilot.
well,
I'm
no,
asking.
but
Yeah.
the basic thing is what the Energy Task Force is
That's what-
supposed to do is come up with ideas or tasks. And then it is supposed to go to the person who's in charge of the department. We don't want them to run the programs. So, yeah, so, but if, I want to go look at this street because I know that Cali, Sonora, that one big, up that hill.
Avenida
is-
Sosiega,
no,
let's see,
Ca-
Calle Sonora.
Is
Calle
so
Sonora.
dark. It is so black up that, when you go up that hill at night, because there are no house lighting, there's like nothing, because it's like grass, and it is so absolutely dark with like one little stinky street light there.
It's like a candle.
So,
Yeah,
but
so-
again.
But no,
if-
so I want to go look at this.
You,
this-
you can look at it, but what I wanted to indicate is that if you only have one street light there, you're not going to be able to deploy the pilot because you need
Right.
a large number of street
Well,
lights.
and that's why I want to know what the address is.
Right, right.
Yes, Roy.
Have you figured in, if necessary, the cost of clearing trees away from this pilot? I mean, is the cost of doing the tree work in the pilot program itself? Because so many of our straight streets, one of the reasons that it's so dark is the trees are covering over these streetlights. And so I wondered if anybody had checked that on Avenida Sosiega. I don't know where that is.
No,
either.
to answer your question, Mr. Chair, to answer your question, no, we have not done that. Obviously, if there's any interfering trees, we're going to, well, not cut them, but we're definitely going to thin them out so that we have a clear view of the street lights and they provide all the light that they can possibly provide. We'll work with the landscape department to make sure that that occurs.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Steve.
When we looked at this in the Energy Task Force, there were a number of concerns that came up. And one of them is that according to this information provided by Siemens, is they're using typical pole spacing. Pole spacing at 170 feet per pole. So we hadn't been provided with any information about what the actual distances are between poles, and I'm sure they're going to be different in different areas of Third, whether they're on Sosiego or Sonora or whatever it may be. So that's one concern. Because if you do the pilot and you take a look at this as prescribed, they're going to do, 3 of one type, skip with 2 HPSs, which you have now, and then 3 of the next type, 2 HPSs and 3 of the next type. You're going to get an observation in one area of the community at that pole spacing. So I think one of the things that we're missing is, what is the pole spacing as opposed to, a typical 170? I think it would be fair to say that there's really nothing typical about Laguna Woods Village.
I will
So
concur.
when Siemens uses a typical 170 spacing and they're talking possibly street lights, which you would find in a municipality, that may not necessarily jive with what we have. So one of the concerns, I think, is that we need to know what the distances are between the lights that we're acquiring from SCE, number one. Number two, the other side of this is we know, having replaced many, many lamps in all the carports years ago, that the Kelvin rating of the bulb is particularly important. 3K to 5K, 3K being more warm, 4K being more white, 5K being more blue. And this pilot only provides for the 3K bulbs, the LED bulbs. One of the things that we went through in GRF parking lots was what Kelvin to use, right? Because the more blue and white it is, the more illumination that you get. So this pilot is going to show you one color. It's not going to show you multiple colors. So you may do this pilot, but then you're not going to have visual representation of what the other colors might look like. One of the things we talked about in the Energy Task Force was doing more than just this individual pilot. Doing a pilot with 3Ks, doing another system with 4K or with 5K, so that a decision can be made with the most amount of information and viewability, right? Another thing to consider is in older adults, your pupils do not react as well as they used to when you were younger, and the absorbing more blue light is bad for your retinas. So you can say, yes, 3K would be intelligent color because it would have less of the blue than a 5K and even less of the blue than a 4K. But I think there's just the overall discussion in the task force was, this is one pilot at one location with 1 Kelvin, and should probably go out and look at doing more.
Do you want to respond to that?
Sure, Mr. Chair. I think that there's a lot of valid concerns that were brought up by Steve. Bottom line, you need to start with the baseline. If you're going to deploy 3 different fixtures at intervals, you don't want to change the Kelvin on them because it's going to give you a different perception.
That's right.
If you're going to consider a different Kelvin, either go to 4,000 or 5,000, whatever it is, you should really do it uniformly so you can see what that brightness is. Combining it will give you
No.
it will give you a different perception, and it will give you a false sense of perception because it'll combine two different heats.
Maybe-
So
Maybe I
what I'm
wasn't-
hearing is that on, say, Sociega, we have these three different fixtures. We have the same Kelvin.
Correct.
And then we go to Via Carrizo, for example, as it's noted here. We have three, please excuse me. We have these three different fixtures with a different Kelvin.
Correct.
So we can test one color here and another color here.
right, what the consultant is saying is that for you to get a good feel for what the illumination will be for a given fixture, you need at least 3 fixtures in a row.
Right.
Okay, so my position at the Energy Task Force is that you got to start with a baseline. You got to deploy something, you got to put something out there, and you need to look at it. Now, if you feel that you need to do another pilot afterwards, then we'll get that information from the consultant and we'll provide a price to this committee, and you can decide whether you want to implement another pilot. One of the things that they don't recommend is that you combine different Kelvins on the fixtures within the same street. They definitely don't recommend that. And
That
they do
wasn't
highly
the
recommend
recommendation
that
that was
you
going to be
have at
made.
least 3 fixtures in a row, so you get a feel for what the street will look like illuminated with that particular fixture. So again, this is a baseline. It's going to give you an idea what the professionals, they are the professionals, are recommending that you installed and that you look at, and you can make a decision from there.
Got it. Steve,
What's
yes.
the cost of the pilot?
This pilot is already included in the contract. It's part of, I don't have that
So,
specific cost.
what you don't know is if you want to test different kelvins in different locations. I mean, we've been doing a lot of lighting in this community for the last 5 years, right? And we know that we don't want to mix kelvins. That was never part of the discussion in the Energy Task Force. What the Energy Task Force concern was, you're only looking at one thing in one location. So if you want to look at 3K with 3 different fixtures on this street, great. Do a different Kelvin on a different location, either the same street, with the same 3 fixtures. If you do this now, and it's the only reference that you have, and you form an opinion about, yeah, it's good enough, you had nothing that you compared it to. So instead of doing the pilot in a sequential fashion, you do it at the same time. In order to be able to make that decision, you have to know what the cost of the pilot is. Is it $10,000 to put up 9 heads? So you could say, well, 3K is going to cost us 9,000 here, and 4K is going to cost us 9,000 there. Let's spend the extra 9,000 and test the other color. You don't have the information.
The point I'm trying to make, Mr. Chair, if I may, is that you got to start somewhere. So whether you do the additional pilot that Steve is suggesting now or later, you're still going to have to pay for it. I don't know what that cost would be, but the firm that you retain, which they happen to be the foremost, experts in the world for lighting, are recommending that you use a 3,000 Kelvin and you use these 3 fixtures. If you would like, I can ask them to provide us a price right away to do another pilot. But my suggestion is that you deploy this pilot and see what it does for you. If the committee feels that you need to do another pilot, then I'll be happy to ask them to give you a price to do another pilot.
So what I'm understanding from this paper, I haven't had a chance to read it, is that we are doing a pilot either on Sosiega or on Carrizo.
We're recommending that it be done in Sosiega, Avenida
Only?
Sosiega. Yes.
Only on Sosiega?
Yes.
Okay,
At this time, but you
Okay.
can add more pilots.
okay. Yes,
Okay. I attended I don't know if it was most recent, but a fairly recent energy task force. I feel like we're in that exact meeting right now, trying to play experts if we could evaluate what Kelvin we should be using. Can't we have the task force look at the facts and make a recommendation to us as to get that cost information to them so we can make a decision as a committee of what to recommend to the board? I feel like we're
Right.
skipping a huge step that we assign people to do.
Right. Well, you're paying a couple of $100,000 to a consultant who's the foremost authority in lighting in the world, and they'll tell you what to do. So we can second guess them.
No, I love that suggestion, but
Yeah.
can't you convince our task force that that's the best way to go instead of bringing us piecemeal information after? It just seems like we're out of order, that's all I'm saying.
Well, this is the analysis that they provided. So if you would like me to get Siemens to come over and answer specific questions from yourselves, or if you want to hire another lighting consultant, then we can certainly do that. But I mean, all we're asking at this point is that you approve deployment of a pilot, so that you can have a baseline on what they're proposing to do. If you want additional pilots after that, then you can certainly do that.
I don't feel qualified to judge. We assigned a task force to assess this, and they're not giving us a recommendation that agrees with yours.
Well, the task force, you don't have the expertise that Siemens does, so that's why you spend a couple $100,000 on an expert to tell you what to do. I certainly personally don't, I'm a
John,
civil
you'll
engineer, I
talk
don't
to
have
him
the
after
expertise
the
in
meeting.
One
lighting.
second,
Tell you?
Ernesto. This was supposed to be only
No, he changed it. He said he went from verbal to written.
a written, but he's just presenting this as a
Propose it to
report.
us.
This is not something that we are going to vote on or decide at this time. So I don't want this to get into a debate situation that we need to
That's
do
fine.
this or that.
But the big,
Hearing different opinions is good to know.
Oh, I know, but I think he wants to since we've already approved the contract.
Right.
And approved the consultant.
Yes.
And approved that we do a pilot.
Yes.
He just wants to get a go-ahead to start the
We
pilot.
have
So
given him the go-ahead.
I think that's what he was
What
asking.
what I'm asking for today is that you approve the deployment of the pilot project to retrofit the streetlights.
Right.
And along Avenida Sosiega with the fixtures that your consultant is providing to you.
Right.
Yes,
That's
but we
Right.
can't do that at this time because we don't own anything.
That's right, you cannot do it right now, but if you don't approve it right now, then once we own it, I'll have to wait for you to approve it. So I'm trying to get ahead of the curve here, so
Right.
that once you own the fixtures, once you own the streetlights,
Okay.
we can go ahead and begin the pilot right away.
Okay, so I recommend that before I recommend, I would also request that if it's possible to get an idea on how much it would cost to have a similar pilot that we are doing on Sosiega in another location. If you can just find out the cost for the second pilot,
Okay.
which can run concurrently.
I can certainly do that. I need the parameters that you want me to use, though.
The same
You want me
thing.
to use the same fixtures?
There's the same thing with a different color.
Okay, so, and the color, would you like it to be 4,000, 5,000?
What do you
Illumination.
think, you guys?
You have a task force.
Don't have the expertise.
You haven't heard the task force
But task force.
opinion, and if I wasn't here, you wouldn't even be hearing this.
Correct. So that's why I'm asking.
So the general opinion was, when you do the pilot, to do it in enough variations of the Kelvin to make a choice.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is that we do, instead of one, we do more than three.
Possibly three.
But
That
at
is
this
what
time-
was discussed.
Okay.
But we
So-
don't know the cost.
Correct. So we are
So-
going to get a cost
Right.
of what a second would cost, and that may be as good information to run more than one.
Correct. And the other consideration here, okay, so that everyone is clear on this, your cost savings in converting from the HPS, which you have now, to the LED is minimal. And the reason that those cost savings are minimal is because SCE has a rate structure that says if you lower the wattage and the consumption for your street lighting, they will raise the monthly charge against it. So, you know, you end up only saving a fraction of the amount of money. If you look at page 5 of this, the total installation costs for the King Luminaire and the GE Cobras, which are, I think, the first two that they recommend, is $750,000, $800,000. How much will it cost you to pilot enough variances in lighting before you spend almost $1 million in changing your lights? That's the question, right?
Possibly.
So if I may, if I
What
may.
I'm trying to do right now is expedite this process by getting two things done. One is the cost of per pilot, and the other is to vote on approving that we can go ahead and do the pilot, which is so prescribed by Siemens. Yes.
I have a little bit of a challenge here, and that is not undervaluing your opinion, Steve, because it's valued, but the basic thing is we never, ever ask the person who we hire and who we pay if he thinks it's advisable to do one pilot, two pilots, or three pilots. And that is the key. I think that the idea is excellent, but we have a commitment that we have to work with the staff who we hire to get, they're the experts, they're the people who we pay, and if we're gonna tell him what to do, then I would, if he was telling me what to do every minute and you were paying me, I would tell you, well, never mind what I would tell you. So I think that we should probably take it away from here, take it out of this meeting, and you and Bunny, or you, Bunny, should sit down with Ernesto and say, okay, we've heard this, we've heard at the Energy Committee, what do you really believe that we should do? Because we're just saying, gee, what Steve says sounds really good. Roy could come up with, I don't want to run any pilots. Well, I'm just joking. And so we really have to sit down with Ernesto and say, what do you advise? And why do you advise it? And he has to advise us of the best thing. So that's what I had to say.
Yeah, if I may, I think that Kush had a very good idea. Authorize us to move forward with the pilot as proposed.
Right.
And direct staff to get a price for an additional pilot. And we can certainly do that. There's
And
no,
you're okay with that?
absolutely. We'll go to Siemens. We'll get a price for an additional pilot to increase the Calvin to, say, 4,000.
Whatever.
And we'll bring that back to you. But in the
Okay.
meantime, we have authority to move forward with
With the pilot as soon as we get,
So,
okay, so I move to follow staff recommendation to go ahead with the pilot.
And you seconded it?
And Roy second.
And the only thing that I would ask to is if he comes up with a recommendation to have an additional pilot, and he has to have another vote, if he needs another vote, it is your option at any time to call, if it's a certain amount of money,
Oh, special
to
meeting.
call for a meeting, and we don't want to be wasting time on it.
Correct.
So
Yes.
let's make sure that goes
Yes, that's
with the motion.
Yes, so noted, Laurie. Okay?
John has his hand up.
Yes,
I'd like to put one comment in regards to the motion. I don't understand why the task force met, and this issue was brought up, I was there, I heard it, and nobody evaluated this cost before it hit us today. It's like, we knew this was gonna be an issue at some point, why not get this all buttoned up so we can have all these facts in front of us? I think your recommendation now is great, because it lets us move forward, but why not let us evaluate all the costs as far ahead of time as possible, is my only comment.
That was discussed at the last task force meeting. What is the cost to do the pilot? It's included in the contract. But what's the cost? If you want to do another color and another color, what's the cost?
Yeah, the reason why that comment was made, along with many other comments,
Pardon?
I was stating that that comment was made along with many other comments, such as change the light bulb, extend the poles up, and get a price. So I felt that it was more appropriate for the MNC, who's actually overseeing the project, and third, that's actually paying for the project, to make a decision as to whether we should go out and get another price for a pilot. So that's why it's being brought to this committee.
The only comment I have is I'd like to, if we're going to have a second pilot, is go by the consultant's recommendation as to what illumination that he would suggest.
Well, that's what I would recommend. You know,
So at this time, we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. Can we vote on it? All in favor? And I think Rosemary's hand would be up if she was here. Yeah. Okay. So with that, we go to the next item on our agenda, which is, I guess we are done with
that's it.
items for future agenda. So we are done with our regular agenda.
That's correct.
Alteration, flooring replacement, disbursement, and
Concluding business?
concluding business. Committee member comments. Steve, we would start with you.
No comments.
Okay, Roy?
No comments, thank you.
John? John? Buddy?
Well, the only little bit is the second pilot, although as a staff, well, we recommend the consulting to do the recommendation. But that recommendation should include all possible variation equally good. In other words, you may have a green light or yellow light, they work equally well, but different price. So if there's a possible equally good result, but a different price, that second pilot study should include that. Like a second pilot, option 1, option 2, option 3,
Sure.
whatever.
We'll, like John mentioned, we will ask the consultant what
Yeah.
he proposes
Yeah.
as the second pilot to give you the best
Yeah,
possible shot at it.
okay, that's my own comment.
Ernesto, you have a comment?
No, sir, no comment. Thank you.
And Laurie? No comment. Okay, awesome. The date of our next meeting is March 4th, 2019. And with that, we adjourn this meeting.